typically, so the rule, there's just the one that I'm going to talk about in this video. Typically, whenever you get the spelling M and B, normally at the end of a word, although I am going to talk about one word where it's in the middle, the B at the end is silent and we just pronounce the M. So we just pronounce and that's it. For example, bomb, climb. And of course, this applies to words like climbing, climber. We still don't pronounce the B. Climb, climbing, climbed. The B's still silent. Crumb, dumb, lamb, limb, numb, thumb, womb, tomb, comb. And the one that I mentioned earlier, where the spelling is in the middle of a word, plumber. Now, a couple of words that I want to talk about that don't follow this rule, but they still have silent B's, are subtle, debt. It tends to be when we have a combination of the letters S and C together. And some people kind of joke and debate and say, well, which one is silent? Is it the S or is it the C that's actually silent? But we're just gonna say for the sake of this video that the C is silent. And what we tend to do is just pronounce it as a S sound. So that S is what's really pronounced. If we take, for example, abscess, abscess, you see, I don't pronounce the C here. Here are some other examples. Ascend, ascend. Muscle, muscle. The next one, descend, descend. Disciple, disciple. Fascinate, fascinate. This also goes the same for fascinated, fascinated. Obscene, obscene. If you're a doctor, a nurse, or you work in a hospital, then you'll be familiar with this word. Resuscitate, resuscitate. Scenario, scenario. Scene, scene. Scent, scent. Science. So not science or skiance, careful. Science, science. This is a tricky one. Scissors, scissors. If you're talking about the tool that you use, for example, to cut paper, we never say scissor, we say scissors. We always use the plural form. Scissors. Transcend, transcend. And then two more words that just slightly break this rule, but still the C is silent. Conscience, conscience. So you see this time it's not conscience or anything like that, but conscience, shh, conscience. And the last one is very similar, conscious, conscious. So remember it's not S here, but a sh, conscious. That's it for this video. First rule, whenever we have D, G, E in the spelling, typically at the end of words, although not always, we normally just pronounce this as a J. It becomes a J sound. For example, badge, edge, hedge, wedge. So notice that I'm not trying to say wedge or anything like that. The D is completely silent. We go straight to that J sound. Wedge. The next rule is whenever we have an N and a D together, we normally just remove the D. For example, handkerchief, handkerchief. So here I'm not pronouncing the N as a N, but I'm pronouncing it as a N because we're anticipating that K sound. Handkerchief. Handsome. Sandwich. And the last one that doesn't follow any of the rules I mentioned, Wednesday. So it's just two syllables usually. Wednesday, Wednesday. And that's it for this video. Our first rule is when we have the letters G and N together at the end or towards the end of a word, we tend to remove that G completely, so don't try and pronounce it. For example, in align, I don't say align or anything like that, but align. This is completely removed. The next one, assign, assign. Campaign, campaign. Resign, resign. Sign, sign. So when you have resign, it's with a z, but sign is with a s. Champagne, champagne. Cologne, cologne. Design, design. Foreign, foreign. The same also goes with foreigner. It doesn't change there either. Foreign, foreigner. When you get the G and N at the beginning of a word, it also disappears. For example, gnome. So not gnome, but gnome. Gnarly, gnarly. Gnaw, gnaw. Gnarl, gnarl. Sometimes when you get G and H together at the end or towards the end of a word, the G is also completely silent. For example, night, night. Wait, wait. Furlough, furlough. Thorough, thorough. Bow, bow. And you might be familiar with this city in Scotland. It's Edinburgh, Edinburgh, or Edinburgh, Edinburgh. So as we know, GH at the end of a word or towards the end of a word becomes silent. However, if you get GH at the start of a word, it's still pronounced. So for example, ghost. We don't remove the G, it's still there. Ghost. Another one is ghoul, ghoul. In some cases, towards the end of a word, GH is actually pronounced as f. So we looked at words where GH is silent altogether at the end of words, and now we're going to look at a few where GH is pronounced as f. For example, tough, tough. Enough, enough. Laugh, laugh. Or laugh, laugh. Cough, cough. And finally, some words of Greek origin also have a silent G. For example, phlegm, phlegm. Diaphragm, diaphragm. And lastly, paradigm, paradigm. So starting with the first rule, when we have a word that begins with H, but the origin is French or Old French, we tend not to pronounce that H as a h sound. We just remove it completely. For example, honest, honest. Hour, hour. Honour, honour. Air, air. So this is pronounced the same as the air we breathe. Different spellings, but same pronunciation. Heiress, heiress. Or heiress, heiress. Or another one, heiress, heiress. So for that last one, you've got 3 different ways to pronounce it. So you pick which one you prefer. So of course, this rule also applies to honestly. So we have honest, honestly, honestly. To make your life a little bit easier here, what you can do is cut that T in the middle. So you can just say honestly, honestly. So we cut that T and it makes it so much easier to pronounce. Now on to the second rule. When we have the combination of R and H together, we remove the H and we just pronounce the R sound. For example, rhino. So we don't try and say like rhino. It's really hard. So cut the H, rhino, rhino. If you want the full name, rhinoceros, rhinoceros. Rhyme, rhyme. Rhythm, rhythm. Rhubarb, rhubarb. You might not know what a rhubarb is, but it is quite common in the UK. We tend to put it in pies, crumbles, desserts and things. So if you come to the UK, then you might see rhubarb crumble, rhubarb and apple crumble. It's really popular here. So it's a handy one to know, especially if you visit the UK. Now, rule number 3, this is quite similar to the last one, but instead of having the combination RH, we now have WH. For example, what? So don't try and say like, what? I mean, you can, but that's really difficult, right? What? What? When? When? Where? Where? Whether? Weather. And yes, this is pronounced the same as weather. Which? Which? While? While? White? White? Why? Why? And for our final rule, we're going to look at the spelling CH. Words that typically, not all, but typically come from Greek tend to have this CH spelling pronounced as a K. So we don't pronounce it as a ch, which you might have already learnt. So it's not ch like in cheese, but it's K, like for example in ache. So I hear a lot of students saying H. I have a headache, for example, but it should be ache, headache. Now for this rule, I do have quite a lot of words in this list, so I'm just going to say them. You can pause and repeat if you want to practice, but I'm just going to fly through them. Anchor, anchor, archaeology, archaeology, architect, architect, chaos, chaos, character, character, charisma, charisma, chemical, chemical, chemist, chemist, choir, choir, chord, chord, chrome, chrome. So if you use the browser Google Chrome, you now know how to say it. Echo, echo, mechanic, mechanic, monarchy, monarchy, orchestra, orchestra, psychic, psychic. Notice that that P is also silent, so not psychic, psychic. Scheme, scheme, schedule, schedule. If you're now sitting thinking, hold on Emma, I've heard schedule. Typically, schedule is more American English and schedule is more British English. However, there are quite a lot of people in the UK who use schedule, myself included. So schedule and schedule are both used in the UK. Schedule is, as far as I'm aware, only used in the US. School, school, stomach, stomach. So if, for example, you have a stomachache, you know that it's k, stomachache. And our final one, technology, technology. This is often shortened to tech, tech. And that's it for this. Basically, whenever you get this combination of K and N together at the beginning of a spelling, we just don't pronounce the K. It's completely silent. Don't ask me why it's there. I didn't put it there. Someone else did. Blame them. So just don't pronounce the K. Go straight to the N and pronounce it as N. N. And that's it. Let me give you some examples. Knack. Knee. Need. And yes, this is pronounced the same as need. New. And yes, this is pronounced the same as new. No. This is also pronounced the same as no. Knit. And yes, this is pronounced the same as knit. Night. This is pronounced the same as night. Not. This is pronounced the same as not. Knock. Knowledge. And the last one, knuckle. That's it for this. So if we have the combination ALM, ALF, or ALK in a word, typically that L in the middle is silent. For example, almond, almond. Now, depending on the accent of the speaker, they could pronounce this differently. They could also pronounce the L. So we've looked at almond, but you might also hear some speakers say almond, almond. Some speakers might also say almond, almond. So it really just does depend on the speaker's accent with this particular word, which is why I wanted to talk about it first. The next one we have is balm, balm, calf, calf, calm, calm, chalk, chalk. So do be aware that that ALK spelling isn't always an R sound, but here we have chaw or chalk. So watch out for the vowel sounds changing. Palm, palm, half, half. Now I have heard some speakers, as I mentioned with almond, some people do say half and half. I have heard that with some accents. I have heard it with a few of the words I've talked about here. So just be aware that some accents in the UK do pronounce the vowels differently in these words, and they may also pronounce the L. It's just something to be aware of. Talk, talk, walk, walk. And the last one here, salmon, salmon. Now I have heard some people say salmon. This is quite a common accent thing as well. So listen out for those L's. You might hear them with some particular accents. The next rule is with certain modal verbs that have the O-U-L spelling. For example, should, should. That would be the strong form. The weak form would be should, should. So you find the strong form either on its own, or if you want to emphasize something, for example, and the weak form in sentences. Another one is would, would. And the last one, could, could. So should, would, could, all as the strong forms. As the weak forms, should, would, could. Now, besides this O-U-L spelling, I've decided to put some other words in this category as well with O-L spellings. For example, the word yoke, yoke. And our final word, folk, folk. And that's the end. Let's start with the rule. And notice I say rule, not rules. So it's just the one today. Whenever we get a combination of M and N together in a word, normally at the end, although at the end of this video, I am going to show you a word where it is in the middle and we still remove the N. But normally if it's at the end of a word, we just remove the N and we just pronounce the M. So we say and that's it. Here are some examples. Autumn, column, gam, hymn, and yes, this is pronounced the same as him, condemn, and the last one, government. Now, if you check the dictionary, you will see two ways to pronounce it. You will see government with no N in the transcription, and you may also see You will see that one transcription does not contain the N and the other one does contain the N. So just to compare, then you can hear the two. Without the N, we have government. With the N, government. Government. I personally find that the second one is more difficult, and I do find that more people tend to use the first one, so without the N pronunciation, but it's up to you at the end of the day. Whichever one you choose to use, people will understand you, and that's the most important thing. So that's starting with our first rule. Words that typically start with P-S-Y have a silent P, and that first part is usually pronounced as sigh. For example, psychiatrist. So we don't try and say the P. Psychiatrist. Psychic. Psychic. Psychology. Psychology. psychotherapy, psychotherapy, psychotherapy. Psychotic, psychotic. So notice with these words as well, not only is the P silent, but the H is silent as well. Some other words that don't quite fall into this PSY category, but they do have a silent P at the start are pseudonym, pseudonym. Something to also mention is that pseudo is a prefix, so any word that starts with this pseudo will always be pronounced pseudo. And another one, pneumonia. So you've got that ny in there, pneumonia. Now our second rule is when we have P and B together in the middle of a word. For example, cupboard. So not cupboard, cupboard, cupboard. The P is completely removed. Cupboard. And another one we have is raspberry. Raspberry. So we don't pronounce the P, remember it's silent. We can also say raspberry. Raspberry. So that first vowel can change. Raspberry, raspberry. And our final rule is for words that come from Latin or French origins. For example, receipt. So that P is silent there, not receipt. I hear a lot of students saying that. Receipt, receipt. And the last one, coup, coup. For a long, long time, I always thought this was pronounced as coop. And I once said it in front of my dad, and he said, a coop? A coop? Like for chickens? A coop is like a house for chickens. I said, no, a coop, explained what it was. He said, you mean a coup? So even natives don't know how to pronounce English words. I just thought I'd tell you that. Maybe it makes you feel better or worse. I don't know. But yeah, coup. So the P is silent at the end. So there are 3 rules for when we don't and do pronounce the R. I'm going to focus on the 2 first rules as they focus on when we don't pronounce the R. Now, as I said before, there are some accents in the UK where they do pronounce the R even in these rules and these contexts that I'm going to give. So that's just something to be aware of, all right? So the first rule is the R sound is silent if we have a consonant sound coming after it. For example, in the word first, first. Notice that I don't pronounce the R here, and we have a S coming after that R. First, first. Another one is park, park. I don't pronounce the R again because the word ends with a K. Park, park. And the last one here, cared, cared. I don't pronounce the R because the following sound is a D. It's a consonant sound. Cared. The second rule is when we have R at the end of a word, so nothing comes after it. For example, in the word care, care, care. Another one is were, were, were. And the last one, for, for, for. Now there is an exception to this rule, and that is the linking R. This means that when we have a R, so we have an R at the end of a word, and the next word starts with a vowel sound, we can link them together with a R sound. For example, in car alarm, car on its own, I wouldn't pronounce the R normally, okay? Some accents may, I personally don't. Car alarm. However, in rapid speech, this would come together and we would use the linking R. Car alarm, car alarm, car alarm. Now the third and final rule is when we do actually pronounce it, and we pronounce the R when we have an R and then we have a vowel coming after it. For example, in the word hairy, hairy. Notice the position, getting that peanut butter, taking that pouty selfie. Hairy, hairy, hairy. Another is foreign, foreign, foreign. And the last one here, horror, horror, horror. So notice that I pronounce the one in the middle. I pronounce those two R's in the middle because they are between vowels, but I don't pronounce that final one because it's at the end. Now this video wouldn't be complete without some sentences for us to practice, so what I've got here are a mixture of sentences where we pronounce the R and where the R is silent. Before you ask in the comments, even though I say that the R is silent in some of these words, you can still pronounce it. It doesn't matter. And as I said, there are many accents across the UK where they do pronounce the R. So don't worry too much about it. Roy has a red car. Roy has a red car. Roy has a red car. Where were you on Thursday? Where were you on Thursday? Where were you on Thursday? The program starts at 3. The program starts at 3. The program starts at 3. It's far away. It's far away. It's far away. So in this example, I am using the linking R. Normally, we would say far, but here, because away starts with a vowel, we're going to link it with a R. It's far away. It's far away. So the first rule, normally if we have the ending S-T-E-N, we normally don't pronounce the T. So we just pronounce it sun, sun. For example, fasten, or fasten, glisten, listen, moisten. The next rule is when we have the spelling S-T-L-E, soul, soul. So we don't pronounce the T. Usually, we don't pronounce the T. For example, nestle, thistle, castle, or castle, wrestle. The next one is when we have the ending F-T-E-N. We normally just pronounce this as fin. So the T, completely silent again. For example, soften. Now this one is quite a controversial one. It's so controversial, in fact, I made a full video about it about a year or two ago. This one you can say often or often. It really doesn't matter which one you use. You will be understood whether you use one or the other. So you choose. Personally, I say often by pronouncing with the T. One is not more correct or incorrect than the other. They're both fine. They're both in the dictionary. You choose whichever one you prefer. Often or often. Actually, you know what? Let me know in the comments. Do you pronounce often with a T or no T? Are you team T or not team T? Let me know in the comments. The next one I want to talk about is typically with French words that we have taken and we use in English. So if they end with a T, we normally don't pronounce it. For example, ballet, gourmet, buffet or buffet, rapport, ricochet. And this one here, I know it's not at the end, but it's still a French word, mortgage. So the last one we have, it doesn't quite fit in with any of the other rules that I've mentioned, but I just wanted to squeeze it in there because it's quite an important word. It's also getting closer. So here we have Christmas. So that's it for this video. So the first one I want to talk about is aisle, aisle. The second one I want to talk about is aisle. They're pronounced exactly the same despite having different spellings. So both of them are the same pronunciation. They both have a silent S, but they're two completely different words. Aisle. The next one is island, island. This word has 3 possible ways to pronounce it. 2 of them are known to be the more UK versions and 1 is known as the more US version. I'm just going to talk about all 3 for you. So the first one we have is debris, debris. The second, debris, debris. And the last one, the one that's known to be a little bit more American, debris, debris. So that's it for this video. So the rule is pretty simple. Whenever you get a consonant sound and a t or a d at the end of a word, and the next word starts with a consonant sound, can be any consonant sound, doesn't matter what, we can remove the t or d at the end of the word. If the next word starts with a vowel sound, or even sometimes a sound, then we are less likely to remove it. Here are some examples when we remove the t at the end of words. I slept badly last night. I slept badly, slept badly. I slept badly last night. So notice I don't say slept badly, but slept badly, slept badly. Last night, last night. So not last night, but last night. I completely removed the T in both of these cases. Here's another example. Is it your first time here? Is it your first time here? First time, first time. I just removed the T. First time. Now let's have a little look at the D sound and when that can be removed. So here's an example sentence. You look great. You look great. You look great. So it sounds almost like the present, right? So you do need a little bit of context. You look great last night, for example. Then they know, people hopefully will know that you're talking about the past and you're just omitting that d at the end. Now, do you remember at the start of the video I talked about t and how it doesn't just disappear sometimes, but it can also change completely to a different sound. So as I explained at the start of the video, when you get consonant T, consonant, so consonant T being at the end of the word and then another consonant starting the next word, we can remove the T. However, if we have a vowel, a L, a M, or a N, and then a T sound at the end of a word, and the next word starts with any sound, it can be a vowel sound or a consonant sound, we can glottalize that T. Now, if you're not sure what I mean by glottalize, then I do have a video all about the glottal stop. Go and check it out. I will link it down below for you. So here's an example. What did you say? What did you say? So notice there's kind of like a closure here. It will make more sense after watching the glottal stop video. Go and check that out because I don't want to take up all this video explaining the glottal stop when I've already done it for you in another video. Go and check that out if you're a bit confused. But here, I'm not just removing it, I'm replacing it with a glottal stop. So what did you say? If it were just removed completely, it would sound like what did you say? What did you say? So here, because we have a vowel and then we have a t, and then the next word starts with any sound, it doesn't matter, we can glottalize it. What did you say? What did you say? Here's another example. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to go. With can't, we have a n sound there. Remember, if we have a vowel or a l, m, or n before that t, we can glottalize the t. So I can't, wait. So here with wait, we have a vowel again. Vowel is in our rules that I explained earlier. So I can't wait. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to go. And that's it for this video. Whenever we have a G and then a U coming after it, that U tends to be silent. So for example, in the spelling combination G-U-E, for example, in guest, we don't try and pronounce that U. So don't try and say guest. I mean, you can, people might not understand you, and it's really difficult to say. Cut the U, it is silent. Guest, guest, guess. Guess, vague, vague. So even with that G-U-E combination towards the end of the word, it is still a silent U. vague. Rogue, rogue. Now with the spelling G-U-I, the same thing happens, so guitar. And watch that stress. A lot of students say guitar, but the stress is actually on the second syllable. Guitar, guitar. Guide, guide. So slight change in that vowel there, be careful. Guide. Disguise, disguise. So even if it's in the middle, doesn't change. We remove that U. Disguise. Now our next rule is when we have the letter U and then a vowel comes after. For example, biscuit. So I hear this pronounced as biscuit a lot, but remove that U. Biscuit, biscuit. Circuit, circuit. Again, I hear a lot of students saying circuit, but circuit, kit. So the U, again, is silent. Antique, antique. So even though we have a U and an E at the end of the word, they are both silent. And we just finished that word with a K sound. Antique. Some other ones in this category are build and building. So not build or building, but build, building. Remove that U. And the final rule is when we have a vowel, a U, and a G together. And you'll see that all of these have something in common. So the first one is laugh, laugh, or laugh, laugh. Court, court. Thought, thought. Tough, tough. So that GH becomes a F. Tough. Enough, enough. So same thing as tough, that GH becomes a F. Enough. So as you might have already realised, all of these words contain either the spelling A-U-G-H or O-U-G-H. Do bear in mind though that other words that have these spellings may not sit in this category and this rule in this video, okay? English isn't phonetic, so even if something has the same spelling, it might follow a different rule and be pronounced a completely different way. If you've enjoyed this video, the rule here is quite simple. Whenever you get a combination of W and R together at the beginning of a word, we just don't pronounce the W. We go straight to the R. If you have problems with the pronunciation of R, then I do have a video about this. I will put that in the description and up in the card below, above, I should say. You can go and check that out. There's more information there about the sound. So let's have a look at some words together that follow this rule. Wrap. And yes, this is pronounced the same as wrap. Wreck. Wrestle. Wriggle. Wrinkle. Wrist. Wrong. Wrote. And here are some words that don't follow this rule, but they all have silent W's anyway. Answer. Or answer. To. And the last one, sword. So that's it for this video.
Number 1. Let's to the park. Walk, silent L. Let's walk to the park. Let's, tomorrow. Let's talk tomorrow, silent L. Please, to the teacher. Listen, silent T. Please listen to the teacher. I will, a letter. Write. I will write a letter. Silent W. Here's a little pronunciation tip for you here. Whenever you have W and R together in a word at the start, the W tends to be silent. So if you think of the word wrong, we don't say we're wrong. That's the we're wrong answer. We say that's the wrong answer. So W and R together, remove that W, it's silent. Number 5, be with your friends. Honest, silent H. Be honest with your friends. He will come. Doubt, silent B. I doubt he will come. He paid off his debt, silent B. He paid off his debt. Walk down the aisle, silent S. Walk down the aisle. It takes an hour, silent H again. It takes an hour. Number 10, you are halfway through your test. How are you doing so far? Let's try this one. The is old. The castle is old, or the castle is old. You can pronounce this with a long R or a short A. You will find the A, the castle pronunciation, used more in the north of England, while R, castle, is used more in the south of England. However, they both have a silent T. The castle is old. The castle is old. Oh, she saw a ghost, silent H. Ghost. You study. Should, silent L. You should study. This goes the same for would and could. They all have a silent L. Now, of course, this is the strong form, the strong pronunciation. With some words in English, they have two ways to pronounce the word, a strong form and a weak form. I have a full lesson all about strong and weak forms and when to use each one in my sentence stress and intonation video. Go and take a look. I'll leave it down in the description. But here we just have should, would, could. We just have the strong forms here. The is beautiful. Island, silent S. The island is beautiful. The room was in chaos. The room was in chaos. Now in English, you may already know that CH is usually a ch sound, but here it's a k. Chaos. Chaos. The room was in chaos. See you Wednesday. See you Wednesday. A common mispronunciation here is Wednesday. So you're pronouncing letters that should be silent and adding an extra syllable. But actually, this word is just 2 syllables and the D is silent. Wednesday. Wednesday. Eat your vegetable. So again, a common mispronunciation is vegetable. I know it looks like it has table at the end, but it's table. Vegetable. Just 3 syllables here. Vegetable. Eat the vegetable. I need a receipt. Silent P. I need a receipt. Use the carefully. Knife. Silent K. Use the knife carefully. Now you might have noticed I'm pronouncing that carefully in 2 different ways. In this word, you can actually cut a syllable in rapid speech. I have a full video about that as well. I'll leave that in the description too. So you can say carefully, 2 syllables, carefully, or carefully with 3, carefully. But knife, the main word here, has a silent K. Words that typically start with K and N, so K and N, we don't pronounce the K. So for example, knock on the door, my knee, I don't say knee and knock and knife. I say knee, knock, knife. The same with know, knowledge, I don't say know, knowledge. The K is silent. So it's a super easy rule for you to remember. Your hair. Comb your hair. Comb. So it has a silent B. Don't try and pronounce the B when you have that combination of M and B together. So for example, in the word bomb, climb, tomb, we don't say bomb, climb, tomb. The B is silent in all of these words. So again, another super easy rule for you to remember about silent letters. And our final word. The hint was subtle. silent B. The hint was subtle. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember, tell me what results you got. What was your score? Give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I will see you in the next lesson. Bye bye.